Welcome back everybody to PoolieMagTV, the raw, unedited, unscripted NUFC fan channel where everybody's got an opinion and nobody's opinion is wrong. So in today's episode, it is more transfer news on the faltering summer of Newcastle United. It looks like we have now missed out on Hugo Ekitike. You know, the red machine has come in and it looks like they're going to outbid us. So it looks like we've cooled our interest in that. That's a third striker now, well, fourth top target overall and the third striker that we've seemingly going to be missing out on. Looks like we missed out on Brian Mbeumo, Hugo Ekitike, João Pedro and Liam Delap. Chelsea getting two of them, Manchester United getting one of them, and it looks like Liverpool's getting the other. We can't allow this to keep on happening. We really can't. We cannot allow this to keep on happening. But it looks like we are not giving up the ghost, and it looks like we are finally getting our heads together and putting in a substantial effort to get one of these two strikers. And they are Benjamin Sesko from RB Leipzig and Johan Wissa from Brentford. Now I'll start with Wissa because I know a little bit more about Wissa than I do Benjamin Sesko. So Wissa's played for Brentford since he's been in the Premier League. You know, the first season in the Premier League was always going to be tough for Brentford. And I think Ivan Toney really shone in that season, didn't he? And Wissa took a little bit of a step back. But since, you know, Toney was out for the betting, and since he was moved to Saudi Arabia, Johan Wissa scored 31 goals in the Premier League in the last two seasons. He's 29 in September, sorry. So he's coming to, you know, that time where this is probably going to be one of his last big moves. You know, I know 29's not overly old, but it's not usually in the Newcastle model to be buying players like this. But we're going to have to change that model. We can't be buying 23, 24-year-olds all the time. We've got to buy some ready, proven players. Now, if that 23-year-old ends up being, scored 100 odd goals in 100 odd games, then fair enough. But sometimes when you're just buying for potential, you know, we need to buy for the here and now and all. And Johan Wissa would definitely be one for the here and now. You know, if we get 2 or 3 good years out of Wissa, he's an athlete. Footballers are different now. Footballers were footballers who were fitter than the average man, but they still were men, weren't they? Years ago, they'd like to drink, they didn't eat great. You know, by the time they were 30, they might as well have been 50. Where now they're athletes, most of them. You know, at the top level, they're athletes. The nutrition's on point. You know, most of them don't drink. You know, and Johan Wissa probably doesn't drink. You know, most of them don't take drugs. You know, they're not eating pies and chips and, you know, and things like that. They are athletes. And Johan Wissa's clearly an absolute top level, top end athlete. And 19 goals last season for Brentford. You know, you only got to think, what would he have done in Newcastle's team when you've got Tonali and Gordon and Barnes and Bruno and Jacob Murphy, you know, passing the ball. And Isaac doesn't mind an assist now and then either. What would Johan Wissa been like in the Newcastle shed? I think he'd be a fantastic option for us. I really do. I really do. I've liked them for a number of seasons, to be fair. I know Mbeumo gets most of the plaudits, and so did Toney. And Wissa's went completely under the radar. He won't have for Brentford fans and fans who, you know football. But for most fans, if you'd have named a couple of players for Brentford that have went Mbeumo and Toney, Wissa probably he's not up until last season. And even now, with 19 league goals, and Mbeumo's the one going for 70 million. You know, it's mad. And Wissa hasn't really been touted by anybody other than the last week or so. You know, 19 league goals years ago, the people that have been clamouring after him. Imagine if somebody had scored 19 league goals for Coventry, you know, say in the 90s. Wow, you'd be thinking, if he can score 19 goals for Coventry, what can he do for us if we're a top club? And you'd have took a punt on him. Whether he was 28, 29 or not, you would have took a punt on him. Where for some reason, Johan Wissa seems to be flying under the radar, and hopefully that's a good thing for us. Because I really like this lad, I really, really do, and I think if we can put a £35 million bid in, or £40 million bid in, I don't see Brentford rejecting that. And then it's £40 million less than what you were going to pay for Ekitike. So that leaves some money to bring in a defender. But we don't know yet who we're going to get. But it looks like it's either out of who I've just talked about there, Wissa, or the next one, Benjamin Sesko. Now, Benjamin Sesko, I think, scored, 12 league goals last season for RB Leipzig. He's 22. He's scored in the Champions League. He's quick, but he's 6'5", and he's a robust striker. Now, Wissa can play in a number of positions. Benjamin Sesko is Benjamin Sesko is an out-and-out striker for me. He isn't going to play on the wing at 6'5". He's not going to be, I can't see him playing the number 10 role. So this one for me, although it's exciting because he is rapid, he knows where the back of the net is. I do watch the Bundesliga from time to time. Obviously I've watched Wissa a lot more than I've watched Benjamin Sesko because I'm not a fanatic of the Bundesliga, but I have seen Sesko and I know he's a good player. So either or would be great for us. I think Wissa fits into the system better because he can play in a number of positions where I think Sesko, you would sort of have to have been playing a proper bold 4-4-2 with Sesko. And I know he wants two strikers, but this is going to be two out-and-out strikers. And then I think that might take away from Alexander Isak. Would Isak have to drop back a little bit? Would Isak have to be more the provider for Sesko? So you might be taking some things away from Alexander Isak instead of adding to things, which wouldn't be great, would it? So Sesko, top talent. Arsenal winning for him earlier on in the season, and Arsenal need an out-and-out striker. We've got an out-and-out goal scorer. We need somebody who can play alongside him. Now, don't get me wrong, we had Ferdinand and Shearer, two out-and-out goal scorers. We finished second that season, and they scored, I think, over 50 goals between them that season. So, it can be done, but you don't really see it in modern-day football as much. But I'm not saying it can't be done, and I'm not saying I wouldn't have Benjamin Sesko, because I clearly would. I really, really would, because I think he's rapid. He has an eye for a goal. And you don't play for Leipzig week in, week out at 22, who are an established Bundesliga team, who are an established Champions League team. If you're a bad player, do you? It just doesn't happen. He does score goals, and I might be giving him undue criticism here by saying he's just an out-and-out striker. I haven't watched enough of him to know what his link-up play is like, to be fair. So, I might be wrong. If anybody who watches this video knows a little bit more about Benjamin Sesko than I do, feel free to comment and say, look, Steve, he can hold the ball up. He does. He can play in a 4-4-2, or he can play behind the number 9, and things like that. Then get him. Great. I'd have him anyway. But I just don't. For me, from what I've seen of him, I think he's more of the out-and-out goal scorer than a Johan Wissa is. Johan Wissa can play the number 10 role. Johan Wissa played behind Ivan Toney. Johan Wissa can drift out to the wing a little bit. He can float in. So I think Wissa would suit our system more. But this is only going off what I've seen Sesko about 5 or 6 times. I'm not going to sit here and say I watch RB Leipzig every week. I'm not going to sit here and say, I've watched them 100 times and I think I know everything about them. I don't. I don't. And I'm sorry if that's not what people want to hear. Well, I'm just telling the truth. I don't know everything about Sesko. The 5 or 6 times I've seen him, he looks a real player. He looks a handful. He's tall, he's fast, he's quick. He is, and he can rough defenders up. But is he going to be able to play alongside another striker? Or is he going to be wanting to be the main striker? That's the questions we need to answer. So, out the 2 players who I have discussed there, who would you rather have? Would you rather have Wissa, or would you rather have Sesko? Now, Sesko is probably the more sexy name to have because he's 22 and he plays for Leipzig, he's abroad. Wissa's 29 nearly and he's for Brentford. But for me, I'd rather have Wissa. That's just me though. I want to hear everybody else's comments. So hit like, hit subscribe, share the channel, comment down below. Have a great weekend and keep it black and white and keep it PoolieMagTV over and out.